was Yom Kippur on Long Island, just around the late 1990s, if I remember. And I was walking with my father to Yom Kippur evening services, to synagogue. The holiest night of the Jewish year. The night that Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, stand before God and ask to be written into the book of life. And I remember a car driving by and someone leaning out of the car shouting two words at us, at me and my father walking, "Dirty Jews." And then they threw a beer bottle that literally shattered right by our feet where we were walking. And I remember looking down at the broken glass, and then I looked up at my father. Now, for anyone who knows my father was a former IDF officer, served in the 69 campaign and in the Yom Kippur War in 1973. He, like many others, was someone who helped ensure the security, the safety, built the state of Israel, literally with his own body and his presence. And he, like many others of his generation and before and after, have seen things that you and I can't even imagine. And at that specific moment, with those two words being shouted at us, "Dirty Jews," and the beer bottle shattering right by our feet, he said nothing, not a single word. And I've been thinking about that experience every now and then. Actually, it comes up. And I think I want to share what it might mean today. But before I continue, I want to welcome everyone to the Anchors of Hope. I am Rabbi Lior Sinai, and today we are going somewhere that ought not be avoided. And we're going to talk about anti-Semitism. Not as a talking point, not as a fundraising appeal or what it means and what is happening here, but as a reality that is landing on Jewish bodies, on our physical presence, perhaps mental capacity, right now, happening to us right now in cities that are supposed to be safe. Jews are being stabbed in London, beaten in Brooklyn, murdered in DC, in other places. You know, a gunman who crossed state lines last year to shoot Jewish diplomats and others right outside of the American Jewish Committee event. You know, this is not name calling. This is not online harassment. This is physical violence against Jews for being Jews. And yet, that is not the whole story, not even close. So today I want to spend some time and I want to hold three questions at the same time, because I think it's important that we do, or perhaps miss the truth entirely. So what is anti-Semitism really? Jew hatred. Where does it come from? And what is the Jewish response to it? What is it actually worth as part of our history? What is our reaction to it? When I was just around, 8, maybe 10 years old, I remember again an experience I had with my father, and he told me something while we were driving in the car. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And he said to me something along the lines of, here in the United States, it's different. Everyone is the same. Everyone is accepted. Everyone is welcome. There's nothing to fear for being Jewish or Israeli, for that matter. You see, here is one thing about my father. He is a man, as I had mentioned, who chose to fight for Jewish sovereignty, who understood from lived experience that Jewish safety cannot be outsourced to other people's goodwill. He's part of that building of an answer to anti-Semitism. He, nonetheless, at the time, still believed that America had certainly solved that age-old challenge, that question, that disease. The beer bottle that shattered on that sidewalk over 30 or so years ago didn't just shatter glass, it shattered a framework. It shattered an understanding of our existence in the Golden Medina, the golden country, the United States, where people believed that there it would be different. I recently read this article and listened to a podcast The article by Alana Newhouse, editor of Tablet magazine, she was interviewed on Haviv Redi Gur's podcast, Ask Haviv Anything. And she asked, why is it at this precise moment in history, when humanity is facing questions about artificial intelligence, genetic editing, the future of democracy itself, why is it that the entire world is suddenly obsessed with the Jews, with Zionism? Why are we the center of their argument? And her answer could be uncomfortable for some, and I think it is largely right. She argues that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are not really about the Jews. They are a symptom. They are a symptom of where the Western world is at this point of time. National identity being fractured. People no longer know who they are, where they belong, or what they're building towards. What are they a part of? And into that void of meaning, of purpose, of living a life of purpose, they project their anxiety of not knowing onto the people who most visibly refused to lose themselves. Expressions of disgust, Alana shares, are often evidence of envy. A civilization that has abandoned the project of collective identity looks at a people who have maintained their identity, their collective identity, across 3,000 years of persecution, and then something breaks open. That breaking can look like hatred, it can feel like hatred, and it absolutely causes real harm, but underneath it is something closer to a wound than a weapon. Now, I just want to be careful here. That analysis explains the obsession. It does not excuse the violence. The guy who threw the bottle at my father and I, he wasn't a philosopher. He was certainly a man who had hatred for Jews. He saw us, he knew where we were going, and he screamed at us, dirty Jews, and threw that bottle that could have caused some physical harm. But both things can be true simultaneously. A society in dis-ease produces real victims. It can impact our presence, the life we live. So there's this Hebrew word that I want to sit with us for a moment. It's a word that is almost always, for the most part, mistranslated, and the mistranslation can cost us something in terms of our understanding of it. The word teshuvah, or return. We translate it often as repentance, right? We're committing teshuvah, we're repenting for our sins, as if teshuvah is primarily about guilt, about what you did wrong, about turning away from sin. But the root word of teshuvah is shuv, to return, to turn toward. Teshuvah is not a movement away from something, it is a movement toward something. And so here I was with my father, and I want you to notice we were walking on Yom Kippur services when that bottle shattered on Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of teshuvah, of that return, the day Jews do their deepest self-reflection, reckoning, their self-accounting, their turning toward life, towards each other, towards community, towards what we are meant to be, who we are meant to be. The bottle shattered at our feet, and my father at that moment was silent, and then we kept walking. That is teshuvah. Not the dramatic gesture, not the continuation, not, anything that is out of the ordinary, but the refusal to stop moving toward what actually matters. And Jewish history, when you look at it honestly and through a scope, it is not a history of winning arguments against our enemies. It is a history of a people who kept moving forward, who kept walking, who built schools in the shadow of pogroms, who wrote poetry and songs in the camps, who planted trees in the desert, who had children when every rational calculation said, don't do it. What do they have to look forward to? The Jewish response to hatred has never been to eliminate hatred per se. It has always been to keep walking forward, to keep walking towards life. So what do we actually do about anti-Semitism, about Jew hatred? Education, yes, that's certainly important. Educate. Advocate, yes. protect your communities? Absolutely. These are not optional. Legal protection matters, physical security matters. We don't get to skip those steps. We need them as part of our existence, part of our choice for life. But I want to say something that I think might get lost in the conversations that have to do about Jewish safety. And I want to make sure that's clear. You see, the answer to anti-Semitism, to Jew hatred, is not necessarily fighting anti-Semitism. It has never been, and it really hasn't worked. The answer, I believe, is Jewish flourishing, is doubling down on Jewish identity and doing. Think about what Zionism actually was. Not just an ideology, as an act. A group of people looked at 2,000 years of exile, 2,000 years of persecution, of being known as the wandering Jew, and they decided we are not going to organize our entire existence around defending ourselves from the next attack. We are going to build something. We are going to have a state, sovereignty, a language, our culture, an army as needed, an economy, a literature, a future, a presence that is worth living within, that is purpose-driven. And we're going to live somewhere where we can fulfill that dream, that destiny. My father, my grandfather, our ancestors, they didn't just survive anti-Semitism, they built a state. Their response to hatred wasn't just a metaphor of never again or a saying. It was that actual response of choosing life, of moving forward to the fullest expression that you can imagine. I mean, here we are. Here's where I live. And that response is proactive. It is demanding. It requires you to stop asking, how do I protect myself from them? And start asking, what am I building for us? What am I going towards? Because here is the truth. And it has to do with Alana Newhouse's analysis, which points toward, even if she does not say it this way, I do. When the world looks at Jewish vitality and feels something crack open, a wound within itself, the response that actually serves everyone, including the world, is not for Jews to make themselves smaller so the world feels less confronted or can manage their lack of self-confidence or purpose. It is for Jews to become more themselves, more alive, more rooted, more generative, more Jewish, not less. Before I close, I want to go back to that sidewalk experience I had many, many years ago with my father. You see, the glass that shattered is still there. My father is still silent, and I am still standing next to a man who fought 2 wars for Jewish sovereignty, who built something with his own body that I get to live inside today. His silence was not defeat. I understand that. I understand that even better now. It was the silence of a man who had already chosen, who had already answered the question of what Jews do in the face of hatred, not with words, but with his life, with the actions he took, with the choices he made. He didn't argue with the driver of the car. He didn't yell at them or curse at them. He kept walking. He kept moving forward. And so the question I want to leave with us, I want to leave us with today, is what are we doing to fight anti-Semitism, if you will? The question is not necessarily what are we doing to fight it, but what are we building towards? What are we doing about it? What kind of ancestors will we be? What are we leaving for those who are coming after us? Not the ancestors who organized around their enemies, the ancestors who threw the anchor forward, who chose life when every force around them said, stop, look over your shoulder. So before we close, I want to suggest an exercise for this week. One act of Jewish flourishing, not defense, not awareness, something generative. Light Shabbat candles. Call your parents, your grandparents. Sit down with your children, with a friend, people from your community, and tell them who they come from, who we are all a part of, the ancestors who came before us. Do something about it. Pass it forward. Walk into the synagogue you never walked into before. Because being Jewish, being a member of Am Yisrael, requires living it, doing something. Am Yisrael Chai It's not just a slogan, it's a way of life. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for listening. Once again, I'm Rabbi Leor Sinai. This is Anchors of Hope. And if this episode speaks to you, please consider sending it. Share it with just one person who needs it. And together, that ripple effect, well, that comes together to cause an even greater movement towards something great. Because it's right here. It's on the horizon. It's coming at us. Better days are here. Open your eyes, look around you. Until next time, everyone, stay anchored.